says going live. Now we're live. Then also, because I'm not sure, when you clicked on it, did you click on that link or did you copy and paste?
I clicked the link.
You clicked on the link and it worked?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the link. So you clicked that and it worked?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, so some people said it didn't. So I don't know what that did. No, that's not
YouTube.
It. That's not it. Delete. Okay. Okay, so you clicked on it. So we'll just assume that. Oh yeah, so this command alt copy. Go back. And we go back here. Okay, so here we are, week 2 live broadcast. We're really lucky that Colleen is actually here in person. So if anybody ever wants to come to do their live broadcast, actually like live as in their room, that would be great. But if you aren't here, then you can do it from where you are. And anyway, so we're really lucky. Colleen's going to give her presentation, and I'm going to let her. Can you guys hear okay? If anybody, whoops, sorry, I don't want to do that. Just setting up here. It always takes a second. Hi, Ching. Hi, Natalie. You guys are all hearing good. That's great. You can also turn your mic off on the top of your screen. There's a mute your microphone. So especially if you have pets or children or phones and you don't want us to hear, you might want to mute your microphone. Anyways, we're going to start this week with Colleen's presentation, which is really great, and I'm happy to have her here. So I'm going to share her screen so that she can go through her presentation. And I'm not sure your questions if you have them, but hopefully I'll be able to see them. So if you have questions for Colleen after her presentation, that would be great, and we can have a little discussion about it. I'm going to have to leave at some point, and then I'm going to go over some other information about the class. So don't leave when she leaves, because we'll have more stuff to do, and she's going to go watch the rest of the presentation and elsewhere. So it's really just great to see everybody here. Dong just got here. We have all kinds of people from all over the place. And remember, mute your mic if you can. On the top of your screen, there's a mute button. It's a little microphone with an X through it, or a half of an X, and that'll make it so that we can't hear you unless you have a question and you want to speak. You can also type questions in, and so that's great too. And I'll try to switch you off. So I'm going to share Colleen's screen with us now. Oops, and I'm going to. And I talk to myself when I'm doing this, so don't worry about me talking. Okay, here we go. So we have Colleen's presentation here, and we can see your questions. Hello, Dong. So if anybody has a question, just go ahead and ask us the question as we're going along. So can you guys can all see her screen now? Anybody not seeing the screen that says the gulfs of execution and evaluation? So, okay, so Colleen, you are on, and then the slideshow, if you want me to just click through it, or do you want me to?
I'm going to click through it.
Okay. Do you mind having this part open, or you want it to be shut? Let's see, how would we do this? Oops, I keep clicking on the wrong window, which you guys don't see, but Colleen sees me clicking on the wrong window. So let's see, PowerPoint view. Oh, where is the thing? Slideshow play.
So I'll play the
oops,
audio.
escape. We don't want to do that. Okay, So we're just going to click through it. Okay. So Colleen, you're on.
All right. So as you guys know, or you should know probably, my name is Colleen Burke. And today I'm going to be talking about the goals of execution, evaluation, and how they relate to the 7-stage action cycle that's in chapter 2.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So what exactly are the goals of execution and evaluation? The goals of execution and evaluation are how people do things in general. The goal of execution is when a person tries to figure out how something works, and the goal of evaluation is when they try to figure out just exactly what happened.
Oops. Being a bad slide projector person. Okay.
For example, let's take a look at an everyday situation and an object. There's a person, they walk into a dark room. This person then notices that there's a light switch. They then notice that the switch is in the off position. The switch being labeled off and on are examples of the designer trying to bridge the gap of the goal of execution. The designer is trying to remove any guesswork so that the user knows just by looking at the light switch what it does. Here's another example of the designer trying to bridge the goal of execution. If the room is too dark, the goal of execution can be difficult because you cannot see the light switch. This product attempts to solve that issue. So the user decides to flip the switch in the upward position. This is an example of the goal of evaluation. When the user flipped the switch on in the upward position, the word on could be seen and instead of the word off, and the entire room became lit. All of the user's expectations have been met. Let's consider another example. What about a switch that does more than one thing? How do we know which button does what? We must use the goal of execution to turn on each switch and use the goal of evaluation to determine the results and if our expectations were met. Not knowing which light switch does what can be extremely annoying. For example, while traveling abroad recently, I encountered a very frustrating situation at one of the hotel rooms I stayed at. There was a light switch by the front door that operated several lights inside the room I stayed at, as well as the bathroom. When I entered the room, there was a short hallway isolating the large light switch. The bathroom door was also closed. The light switch had no labels, so I had to figure out what each one did through execution and evaluation. This process was really irritating because due to the light switch being so isolated and the bathroom's door being shut, the evaluation process took much longer than it should have. I had to walk all around the room and even open the door to another room in order to figure out what these light switches did. This is an example of how design of a room can also be a contributing factor. The goals are present in many everyday devices. A designer must understand the psychology of everyday human actions, or the goals of execution and evaluation lead to a poor design. It's interesting how many people encounter these poor designs and blame themselves for the object's shortcomings. Alternatively, when it comes to more complicated devices, such as sewing machines and digital products, people just tend to simply give up, just incapable of understanding them. The difficulties in these products are derived from poor design. The 7-stage action cycle. Number 1, goal. Form the goal. Number 2, plan the action. Number 3, specify an action sequence. 4, perform the state of the world. 5, perceive the state of the world. 6, interpret the perception, compare, the outcome with the goal. These 7 stages are important in aiding in the development of new products and services. Obviously, a designer should start at the goals, but they have to have good observational skills in order to detect opportunities for product enhancement. Some of the most innovative product ideas of existing products. Consider the example of the measuring cup that can be read from above.
Do you want to talk about that one?
So basically, somebody took a product that, worked, however, it was irritating to use. You had to put it on the counter and look at it from the side. Someone was smart enough to realize that this was an irritating process in the gulf of evaluation. So they went ahead and bridged the gap by putting that measurement in a way where you can look down upon it and make it easier. Again, an example of a designer bridging the gap of the gulf of evaluation. So remember, when designing products for improvement, what Harvard Business School marketing professor Theodore Levitt once pointed out. To buy a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole. So basically, when you understand they only need a hole, you may then dig deeper into it and realize that the person really wants to hang a bookshelf or even just an ebook, the need for the bookshelf. That's it.
Great. Nice job. Okay. So I'm going to stop. Well, actually, I'm going to go back one slide and oops, I clicked on the wrong button again. There's so many screens. See, this is a user error. The gulf of execution goes wrong when you're on these kind of broadcasts because there's Can you hear me now? Sorry. I think somehow I got muted and I'm not sure how. I should not be muted. Yes, you can hear me. Okay, great. Anyways, I was going to say, I think this is a really good example because I have this measuring cup that you can see from above. So I kind of go on a tangent every once in a while and I'll buy like a bunch of different products and find out which one works. I think I bought 5 toaster ovens and returned all the ones that didn't work correctly. So I can totally relate to this. The feed can be slow, so I have to remember to talk slowly. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for Colleen? She has to run out about her presentation. I know it's hard to have a question, but I could call on you. So if you want to unmute your mic, Jacob, picking on you. Do you want to unmute your mic and think of a question? Or you could type a question. All right. Oh, Jacob, you're here.
Yeah, sorry, I got a cut out in my internet feed, so trying to get my mic to work. So
we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. I must have fixed it then.
Good. I know this tech is fun, right? But there's all kinds of things to figure out. But anyways, yeah, do you have a question, Jacob? Or a comment? Observation?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think it's very interesting just how everything is just boiling down to the elements that we normally don't think about.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and so thinking it step by step and just considering all the stages that we go through in processing information and observing objects that now analyze exactly what's kind of getting in the way. And so it's not just as simple as, oh, this thing doesn't work, but why doesn't it work? And so it's nice knowing these little steps.
Yes, and I think it's really cool to think about when you're thinking about new product designs, whether you're actually the designer or you're just on a team of people that's working on something, you can go through those steps very deliberately and give yourself enough time to actually observe people doing things, because I think that a lot of times people don't allow that as part of their process, and it's probably the most important point of the process. So thanks for your comments, Jacob. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing, and I am going to share a different screen here. Okay. Sorry. That's okay. Okay, so Colleen has to leave. Thank you so much for your presentation and coming down here. And I encourage you guys, if you want to ever meet me on campus, if you're around, you're welcome to do that. It's I really enjoy meeting people. So it's a nice part of the class. So at this point, you see a little diagram on your screen. And what I wanted to talk about briefly is mind maps. And so for your assignment that you're going to be working on this week is a project 1 where you're going to be watching a movie and writing a movie review. So one of the things that I wanted people to think about, sorry, I'm trying to find some paper that I'd written earlier, is how you can arrange your movie critique. And one of the ways that I would like you to consider, you can write a traditional paper, but you also could start or include a mind map about things that are happening in the movie, because that would be really interesting if you had one of those mind maps. Let me go back to it. Screen share. There we go. Okay, so this is page 1 of a document that I'm going to put online for you about mind mapping. So mind mapping is a diagram such as that, and you could use your movie as your point of departure for the mind map, and that would give you a way to visualize. You can draw pictures, you can draw words about topics that are in the movie that you're reviewing as an alternative form. So hopefully you'll find that an easy way or fun way to work. I think it's really fun. So this is just a PDF that I'm going to put online for you. Here's another example of a mind map where you start with a central idea, and this could be an idea you find from the movie that you're watching, and you branch off of that and make connections to different things. So you are going to be working on you can work on this mind map, or you can write a traditional paper on the movie that you choose to review. So there's a nice selection of free movies that you can use. So feel free to do that. And another item that I'm going to put on which is similar, but this is called a brainstorming graphic organizer. And it gives a couple of other different ways, like you could do a tree diagram or a flow diagram. And there's some examples on this of the different types of diagrams that you can do to use as part of your process. So you can include this with your paper or as part of your paper, sort of the notes that you might make about the movie. So I hope this will be, I hope everyone can incorporate this way of working if you haven't done it before, because this way I sort of will visually see what you're thinking about in terms of your thesis or argument about the movie, showing your opinion in a way other than writing. So a mind map or a brainstorming, and I will put these on Notebowl so that you'll have them as PDFs and you can read the more detailed description of these different ways of coming up with creative ideas. I think they're really helpful, and you really don't evaluate yourself on it. It's really supposed to be sort of just a way to brainstorm. So please include these as part of your movie review and use them creatively to do that. So that's talking about your project that's coming up, project 2, the mind map thing, the movie review. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was you're going to be reading in your book about semiotics. And semiotics is an interesting topic. And it, as you can see from this diagram, you have all these different dogs, and you have different languages that all say dog. But so semiotics, the study of signs or the science of signs, is how language makes meaning. And so the chapter goes over that, and there's some questions on your essay about that. So I wanted to make sure that I just mentioned a little bit in person to like pay attention to those ideas about semiotics, because that is something that I think is really an interesting aspect of design, a mix of design and science. And so, language is arbitrary. We all, many different cultures speak different languages. So this is why I have this slide here. I'm trying to find what other things I have up here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, all right. So let me see if I can do this without losing you all. I have a couple of, okay, where are we? Here we are. I'm going to stop presenting that screen and I'm going to start a different one. Okay, here it is. So here's another example about semiotics. And so the book briefly goes into sort of the history of semiotics, and the two main people that we think about in terms of semiotics is Ferdinand de Saussure, who is some people say he's Swiss. This says he's French. And then Charles Peirce, who is an American. And these two guys were both working around the same time, trying to sort of decode language and think about how we could kind of communicate different things about signs, signifiers and signified. And so this is just a little simplified diagram that somebody made as a way to sort of explain it, which I thought was a nice sort of attempt. There's a bunch of these on the internet. Different people have done them in different ways. And denotation and connotation, like does something like a rose, there's a rose that's like a love thing, and then there's also like a real rose bush. So thinking about this sort of an objective or a more of a subjective way of communicating an idea. So there's that. And then I have to switch back and forth between different images that I have here that I want to share with you. And then this is another example of thinking about semiotics and decoding information. And I think as visual people, we can think about icons, which is these graphic symbols of ideas that are iconic of the idea, and a symbol, which is something that's learned, like you learn that a dollar sign that means money. And then an index, which is a cause relationship, like a typical one would be maybe if this was a picture of smoke, then you'd know that there was fire somewhere. So these are sort of indexes, or the mercury inside of thermometer is showing the effect of temperature. So those are sort of, so this is just kind of in a little diagram, which I thought may make sense for you. So, okay. So, all right. So anyways, so those were just some things that I thought would be interesting to share with you. I think there's another thing I wanted to share. Hold on one second. Where is it? Too many windows. They're all open and then I can't find things. Okay. Yes. So a lot of people, whoops, that's not it. Okay. Share. It's like 2 steps to this too. This is a bad one of those Gulf things where it shouldn't be 2 steps to present something. So anyways, right here I have the LACMA, the LA County Museum of Art's webpage. I know there's a couple people that are in California or they'll be going to LA. So if you're in LA, what's really cool is the Moholy-Nagy show that's up there. So if you haven't watched this week's video yet, it's the BBC one. This week's is really great, and it talks about the Bauhaus, which was an important art school and really shifted us into sort of this world called, modernism. And Moholy-Nagy was one of the key figures there. So this show is in LA right now. So I hope those of you that are in LA, you could go to that, and that definitely could be an extra credit thing, or you can make it into one of your projects. So I highly encourage you to go see that show. It's really cool. And the BBC video this week, there are questions on the quiz for that, as there were in the last quiz. So you'll want to, I just wanted to sort of forewarn you that you should probably take notes, particularly about sort of the American European sort of differences in modernism. And there's a couple key figures towards the end of the video, Henry Dreyfuss and Raymond Loewy. And so you might want to go back to that or just pay attention to that part, because that part definitely will be on the quiz, as well as some other parts that I can't remember. So just be sure to do that. Also, I had posted some things in the feed about Saul Bass, and there's a short documentary on Saul Bass. Saul Bass was a graphic designer, and he did a lot of film titles that were really important. So when I post these things on Notebowl in the bulletin, you should watch them, and they may or may not be on the quiz, parts of them, but I believe there probably is some questions reviewing that. So just be sure to watch what I put on Notebowl. So I'm trying to think. I think those were the key points that I wanted to talk about this week, as well as the presentation. So in the topics hangout, you have the presentation list that you chose. Be sure to copy and paste your link in there on the day of the presentation, before the presentation, should I want to, maybe I'll present your work without you being there. So I'm not sure if everybody was sure about that. There was some confusion about that. I think everyone has figured out how to use VoiceThread at this point. So there's another VoiceThread for this week that you'll be doing, as that is will be pretty clear to you, I think. Oh yeah, so the Saul Bass documentary, and then also there's a movie that Saul Bass produced, one of his first movies, Why Man Creates. So you're going to be watching that this week. So hopefully everything's going well. If you do have questions, please email me. I guess I can stop sharing the Moholy-Nagy thing, but yeah, I hope everybody in LA gets a chance to see that show. It's amazing, amazing, amazing show. Such a prolific artist, and when I was at it, I was like, oh my God, this man has made so much work. How did he possibly, he died very young, and I'm like, how did he possibly do all this stuff? And then I realized, like, there was no internet, there was no Facebook, so he had a lot of time to focus on his work, and he did a lot of work. He really invented a lot of things that we use today in terms of animation and some other sort of really cool techniques with light and sound. So if you're in LA, definitely go to that show. It's really a remarkable show about the Bauhaus and also about Moholy-Nagy and all of his sort of incredible contributions he made to the field of design. He designed objects, he designed movies, he played around with photography, the idea of light and motion and sound. So he was way ahead of his time in terms of the kind of questions he was asking. He was I guess I would probably say he was a formalist. He was very interested in the formal qualities of what he was working with, but he was just so prolific, and there's just great images of some of the crazy things they did at the Bauhaus School, where they would like do costume parties, and they would create these elaborate costumes that they would wear to parties and things like that. So anyways, it's a great show. So if you're in LA, definitely check it out. It's at LACMA, the LA County Museum. I'm not sure. I know a few people are going to New York, and I've mentioned before the Cooper Hewitt I don't know what's up there, but maybe I'll check that out for next week's weekly broadcast. So I don't have much else to show, but I'm glad that you can tell I slowed down a little bit. I do tend to talk fast, so please tell me if I'm going too fast, if there's like a lag. So if you guys don't have questions, if you have questions, type them in the chat dialog box. Natalie, I'm so great. You're going to go see it. Yay. It's a great show. And plus that, if you haven't been to the LACMA Museum, we only were there for a half a day, so I only saw that one. Actually, I saw two things there. The Moholy Nagy show is there, and there was also a show of Ed Fellow's work, who's a typographer from Detroit originally, and he does really interesting illustrative typography. So he had a little room in there. But there's like, it's a huge building. There's so much to see in there. You could spend 2 days probably. So Joshua was there. So that's great. So anyways, any questions or comments, type them in the chat now or email me if you're having any problem. If you're coming into this video late, I'm sorry about the awkward pauses that might be at the beginning. And when I'm switching screens, it's probably harder to watch it later. So anyways, I think this has been, so far the classes, everything's sort of starting to make sense. I think I mentioned there were some changes where Google Hangouts was bought by YouTube. And so there's been some weird issues for me in terms of trying to figure out the technology there. But I think we're all sort of getting the hang of everything at this point. This week, if you are having problems, definitely let me know this week so we can straighten it out. So you'll do well in the class. And you've got the weekly list of things to do. You're going to be doing the movie report, which I was saying you can incorporate a mind map of some sort in lieu, like if it's a more of an artistic movie review versus a written review, that's fine, but it's a writing intensive class, so it needs to be sort of the equivalent of that. But I feel like visual language is just as important as written, so I encourage you to do things visually as well, text and image on your reports if you can do that. So, and everybody's coming in with different skills and different backgrounds. So I'm really open to how you can achieve the goals you want with this work. So I'm going to sign out now. I don't see any questions.
And, Karen.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob.
Hey.
Actually, I can see you on.
Yeah. I got the video now, so it's all coming together.
Cool.
So you we're talking about. Well, I guess my question is, if we, I'm not sure if we're going to be coming short to. Well, okay. So our visuals that we're going to make for this first assignment, how do you know if we're going to come short or within meeting the requirements of the assignment to be as good, or if not?
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of a 5-page paper. That's such a subjective question. So to me, it will be if you're communicating the idea and about what you want to say about the movie. Like if you're going to be commenting on, I have to think of an example, which is hard to do off the top of my head. But okay, so say you're doing the movie review of Beautiful Losers, which happens to be about graffiti artists, their practice of sort of melding language between graffiti and high culture and street culture. So maybe you happen to be a graffiti artist, so you go and you document some of your graffiti art and you talk about how some of the things that they were trying to overcome in their practice you also have done in yours, and you have more images of your work. I mean, that would be totally acceptable. So I don't know. It's a hard question, but I'll.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess
usually
let us know.
Somebody like did it the night before and they only spent 20 minutes in it, or if they spent a long time. So
okay.
It's usually pretty. It's usually pretty obvious, but I want to make it open so that people can practice what they want to practice in terms of telling a narrative, in terms of communicating an idea, whether it's 5 pages of written document or 2 pages of written part and then 5 pages of visuals. So that would be a sort of an equivalent, like. You have a few paragraphs that are written and then the visual examples to follow. Okay. Or you make a short animation.
Okay.
Little.
And
summary
I
of it.
suppose you can adjust along the way and let us know if we need to put a little more work into it, I guess. If we are going the visual
Absolutely.
route and
Yeah.
it's a little
Yeah.
short for what you
If there's a problem, I'll give you the opportunity to fix it, grade wise. So if it's too, I definitely will let you know.
Okay.
Especially it's good too, because this is the first project and you'll have several weeks if you wanted to add to it, if it wasn't up to par. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. That was a good one. So go back to myself. Okay. Now you see me. So, any other questions from anybody? So I really appreciate your coming to the live chat, because it's really much more rewarding for me to know that I'm talking to people live and that you have the opportunity to ask a question. And, of course you do get extra points for being here, but just personally, I appreciate it because I think it's cool to have online classes, but I really like the human connection that you can make with people. And I feel like this video makes it a little bit more like I am actually like seeing you in some sense. So I really appreciate your coming, and I hope you can come to the next ones. And I hope you can present live from your house, like the way we just, presented Jacob. We could do that for the next topic discussion. So if yours are coming up, you can, and I've had people that didn't even make visuals. They just talked about their idea, which is totally fine too. So anyways, it should be fun. I'm enjoying the class. I love the BBC series. I think they're all really interesting, and the other movies that I picked out. So I hope you guys are enjoying the content of the class and the readings and what you're working on. So, I was going to say also, I did talk to somebody about picking a topic from the book. And there's like some really good examples in the book. Like I saw there was an example about sort of news feeds. So if you wanted to do your the ladder project, the topic discussion, if you were in there and you're like, I want to talk about how the news is using graphics to sort of manipulate the content of the news, you totally could do that too. And you could talk about the semiotics of the news. So even if it doesn't exactly, like the words that I typed on the side of the topic discussions, those were just general words to get you going, but you can totally sort of branch onto those and make them something that's really interesting to you in terms of what's in that chapter. So if there's an example of, say, maybe like, I think there's a food pyramid or something. So if you want to talk about the semiotics of the food pyramid and different ways to, visualize health issues, that would be totally fine. So I really want you to make the information interesting for you and personal. And then I really want you to research it and sort of bring it together with the ideas of how the design is influencing the content or the culture, or how it's talking to different people. So it's pretty open, and you can email me like ideas. Like if you're like, well, I kind of want to do this, but I'm not sure if that's what she means, just feel free to email me to see if it's something that would work. So anyways, thanks again for coming today. Everybody have a great week. Don't forget the quizzes and the deadlines, because I'd hate for you to miss points on that. And I won't reopen the quiz, so don't miss that deadline. And so forth. The voice threads are great. So thanks I think everybody's in now, so that's great. So we're off to a good start this summer. So thanks so much, and have a great week. Bye.